They said when it's time, start. So is it time? Yeah. Is everybody here? Can you hear okay? PA is working all right? We're all good, good, good. All right. Okay. We live in a time where there are oh, you mean I can't step on this cord? I thought maybe it was the CIA was listening in or something. Well, let's just start. So we live in a day, as I was saying, where there are a lot of decisions being made that I would call decisions toward untruth. And so I put this together. To kind of try to bring together what I would call benchmarks, because who here wants to make decisions based on truth? Yeah, we all do, right? Unless there's a Monsanto plant or something like that. But most of us here, we want to be able to make decisions that we know are true, especially on our homesteads, on our properties. We want to make decisions that we know are going to be toward truth. So I've got 10 of these, if you're taking notes, and we'll just zip right through them and hopefully have some time for questions. I think I go to 4:15, so I've got some time to give it, and then we'll take some questions. So the first benchmark is, does it build carbon? Now we could say, does it build soil? But I want to be a little broader than building soil. Does it build carbon? As a result of this decision, is it going to build biomass, carbon in the soil, above the soil, around the soil? Is it going to build carbon? What's the single most specific way to eliminate carbon in the soil? Anybody know? Tillage. Yes, move to the head of the class, whoever said that. Tillage, all right? So what that means is we want to design our homesteads and farms as much as possible so that this thing's almost, it's like on a lag, you know, you just have to wait a minute and then it catches up. It's like the old, when those video display terminals first came out. I was a junior in high school, and the newspaper I was working in the evening, that they just got these new video display terminals, and they were so slow. If you could type well, you would type ahead of it, and then you watch it catch up with you on the screen. That was so much fun to watch it catch up. Still not there. He is. Catch up with you on the screen. All right, technology. Don't you love it? So what we want to do is design our places as much as possible to be founded on perennials, not annuals, that have to be that require tillage. So when you think about mainline agriculture in America, and you think about the farm bill that's coming up, and you think about the 6 things that the government insures, they don't call it crop subsidies anymore. They call it, crop insurance. Sounds a lot better than subsidies. And there are 6 things that they subsidize, that they help. None of them is a perennial. They're all annuals: corn, soybeans, sugarcane, cotton, wheat, and rice. 6 things. So our entire farm bill system is predicated on a special concessionary incentive to grow things that require reducing carbon in the soil. Okay? That's an important thing to remember. Then the next thing we want to do if we're going to build carbon building systems is we want integrated systems, not segregated systems. So we want to close the loop. We don't want segregation in the system. And right now, our system is highly segregated. we get the fertilizer over here, we get the, grow the feed over here, we grow the animals over here, we process them over here, and then we truck them over here, and we sell them over here. And so these are very segregated systems. What we want to do is close the loops. In nature, in nature's systems, there are no. They all left. We're on our own now. They've sent us adrift into the ocean by ourselves. There is no away. Bill McKibben talks about this. There is no away. There is no, nature doesn't have landfills. Okay? And so closing our loops, not having waste systems. And so, it sounds kind of far out, but literally buying bulk food, canning in glass instead of in disposable packages, those kinds of things all add to this. Does it actually increase carbon and make sure that we don't reduce biomass? Pruning. Okay, this is another way we can increase the carbon by keeping all the carbon and all the vegetation young and vibrant. So with the pasture, we do this with mob stocking, herbivorous, solar conversion, lignified carbon sequestration, fertilization. You don't think I can say that again, do you? All right. Once is all you get. And in the forest, it's done by actually cutting trees. And a lot of the fires we're experiencing, if you look at fire statistics, we've gone through about 50 years. The worst thing that ever happened to America's biomass was Smokey the Bear. How's that for a little bit of a bombshell? Sorry to disappoint you. But Smokey the Bear sent our country into a non-cut mode, and all these trees have now grown up and gotten old, and trees don't live forever. And now we're spending $5 billion a year with fighting fires. What we need to do is be cutting these trees, chipping them, and using them for composting systems and fertilization. The point is that what we want to develop here is environmentalism by participation, not environmentalism by abandonment. And so when we talk about a benchmark of truth, is this decision in my operation, is it going to increase biomass? Is it going to increase carbon in the soil? Lightning bug just landed on my finger. Or is it going to deplete that? There are uses for petroleum. I'm not saying there's not a use for petroleum. In my worldview, there are 3 good uses for petroleum. One is to chip trees that we've cut so you can compost them. We can use petroleum for building ponds to increase hydration in the landscape. 500 years ago, the U.S. was 8% water. It wasn't the U.S. then, North America. 500 years ago, it was 8% water. Today, we're less than 4%. Where'd all that water come from? Beavers. Boy, some more smart people here. This is like Lake Wobegon, where everybody's above average and everybody's more intelligent. So hydrating the landscape. And then the third good use of petroleum is plastic for solariums and season extension, hoop houses and things. So, I think there are strategic uses for petroleum. One of the worst uses for petroleum, of course, is transporting food an average of 1,500 miles between the farm and the plate. That's a bad use of petroleum. In 1946, the average morsel of food between the farm and the plate traveled 40 miles, average, in 1946. In 1900, it took 1 calorie of energy to put 1 calorie of food on your plate. Today, it takes 15 calories of energy to put 1 calorie on your plate. That's how unsustainable we've become. That's because we've made so many decisions that actually reduce biomass and reduce carbon. Number two, is it child friendly? Is it child friendly? You know, I've known many people, entire families who have died in manure lagoons with, you know, gases, or they've gotten in the wrong chamber, or somebody slipped and fell in, whatever. I've never heard of a child drowning in a compost pile. Okay? And so child friendliness is about being transparent, open sourced, shareable. Is it child captivating? Said another way, is it aesthetically and aromatically, sensually romantic? Is it ugly? Does it stink? That's not a decision toward truth. So what we want is we want our homesteads and our farms to be places where it's friendly to children, friendly for visitors to come and participate and learn. I was in Australia and saw a wonderful a sign at a farm entrance. It looked like a no trespassing sign. You know, think about all the industrial farms, you know, Tyson Farms, feedlots, industrial farms. They all have no trespassing signs at the entrance. They don't want anybody to come. Transparent, very opaque. Don't want anybody to come. In Australia, I saw this wonderful sign at this farm entrance. Looked like a no trespassing sign, and it said, trespassers will be impressed. Okay? That's the way we want our farms to be. We want our farms to where visitors want to come, participate, and learn. I know when folks come to our farm, one of the most common things they say is, it doesn't smell. Now, it might not be the prettiest thing in the world. You know, we don't have all painted white fences and things like that. In fact, we don't even like fences. But you know, it doesn't smell. It should be child-friendly for our farm kids. It should be emotionally enjoyable for them, not embarrassing. You know, on the average industrial chicken farm in America, the first job for farm boys is the dead walk. Go pick up the dead ones. Now, if you're a 10-year-old kid, is that something you want to brag to your... I'm just going to keep on going. Is that okay? I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to go on. You don't want to brag to the kids at school. How many kids brag? Hey, I got to do the dead walk this morning. You know, I got to walk through and pick up all the mortalities. You know, we want a place where we don't have to apologize, where around every corner there's not an embarrassment. The dirty chicken yard, the weedy garden, the you know, things out of control. We want a place where it looks like there's order and there's emotional joy. For farm kids, it needs to be economically pleasurable. Okay, that means the kids need to understand that we are growing salaries here. We're stacking enterprises. We're entrepreneurial. There's economic advantage here. This isn't just a place where we're feeding the world. It isn't just a place where we're growing commodities for the man. It is economically enjoyable and producing a salary, or contributing to the family, to the family budget. So there are things that the homestead and the farm actually bring to us economically that are tied to the production, so the kids can know, oh, okay, we get to do this, or we get to enjoy this because the farm, the homestead is economically viable, okay? That's child-friendly. A lot of our farm kids are leaving farms because they don't see an economic future there. Anybody know people like that? I run into them every day, and I get calls almost every day from somebody who has inherited a farm, or mom and dad are old and moving off the farm, and the kids are having to deal with this, and they don't see any future there economically. So it hasn't been child-friendly. And of course, when you grow up, when all you hear from mom and dad is, ain't no money in farming, it's pretty hard to get the kids all excited about the economic viability of the farm. Another thing you can do to keep the farm kids child friendly is that it's ecologically enjoyable for the farm kids. The mystery, the beauty, the awesomeness. I mean, in the last week, I've gotten to watch a mother duck with 7 little new hatchling ducks come, paddling up the river that goes under our lane. The other morning I was up checking on a water line, and I'm going along, and I come around a bend in the road, and there's a doe standing right in the middle of the road with a brand new born fawn nursing her. And of course I slam on the brakes of the four-wheeler and I stop, and I'm 10, 12 feet away from her. And the little fawn suddenly disappeared. I didn't see where it went. He was on the other side of her, so I couldn't really see where it ran. But she just stayed there, and we have this, we're looking at each other. And she doesn't move anywhere. This is kind of unusual. And so finally I got things to do. I got places to go, so I started up, and she, kind of jumped off the road. And then I saw on the left, there's the fawn, and it hadn't run. It had just gotten prone to the ground to try to hide. And it was hiding under a mountain laurel and a fern sitting there. So I got off the four-wheeler, just walked over to it, and just started petting him. I didn't pick him up. I didn't hold him. I just petted him for, a good minute or while. And he just sat there just like a kitten, never moved, never went anywhere. And then, of course, I finally got on and went. Listen, how many kids get to do that? That's a magic moment. And so when we're making decisions for our farm, are we actually creating those kinds of magic moments for them? In industrial agriculture, they hate wildlife. They hate wildlife. They blame ducks and geese on avian influenza. They blame deer on Crotchfield, whatever it is, wasting disease. I mean, I know they have it, but what I'm suggesting is that there is a general antipathy toward wildlife, and yet on a farm in a homestead, some of our most magical, child-friendly, awesome moments are wildlife, and so that ecology plays into a child-friendly atmosphere, and then we want to have jobs that are as easy for kids to do as adults. A very small child can gather eggs almost as fast as an adult. And if you're butchering chickens, nobody can pull out lungs quicker than a 5-year-old. Those little hands, they just jump in there and grab that. Well, they can almost jump inside, but they get in there and they can get those lungs out. There are a lot of things as we design ourselves, we make decisions. Think about the average large industrial commercial farms. They don't have very many places for kids to be a part of. I mean, who's going to put a kid in the cab of a 140 horsepower tractor? Who's going to put the kid in a compromised? Who wants the kid to go down and breathe fecal particulate in a chicken house all day? Okay, so what we want are opportunities and places for kids to be productive. This, I would suggest, is critical for self-actualization and self-identity and learning, for the kids to learn who they are. I suggest that kids' self-worth comes from successfully accomplishing meaningful tasks. And the problem in our culture today is we don't have places where kids can successfully accomplish meaningful tasks. And they know that when they haven't done anything, we just say, well, you're a good little boy or a good little girl. If they haven't done anything to deserve it, inside they're saying, good. Well, good for what? They get that, all right? They've got to do something worth doing, worth being complimented for. So child friendliness is a big deal. So think about the decision you're making. Is it child friendly? Number three, being honoring. Being honoring. I mean being as in a thing, as in honoring the pigness of pigs. Does it honor the beingness of something? You know, Henry Ford, when he was putting together the assembly line in Detroit, would take visitors through all the time. And one of his common thoughts as he took visitors through this amazing assembly plant was, of course, it was a marvel of the day. And he only had one complaint. He said, I've got one complaint. The complaint is, I have to hire a whole man when all I need are his hands. Now that sounds like just the kind of guy I'd like to work for. All I needed are his hands, but I got to put up with his brain. You know, I got to put up with his legs. I got to put up with his liver. You know, it's demeaning. I mean, think about COVID and how many people were told that your job is non-essential. You can stay home. What did that do to millions of people who thought they were contributing to society and suddenly were labeled non-essential? That was a bad decision because it de-actualized and disempowered millions of people. So when we make our decisions, we want to make decisions that honor the glory, the physiological distinctiveness, the phenotypical expression of the animals, the trees, the plants, the everything under our control, all the animal world. Over lunch, I was talking with Michael Pollan about his next book. The manuscript's going to be out sometime this fall, and it's about consciousness. And it's a fascinating discussion, and what they're realizing is that there is perception, consciousness in every living thing. That's what separates living things from non-living things. A cardboard box doesn't have any consciousness. But even a carrot in the garden responds to light, responds to touch, responds to weeds, responds to pheromones, and emits energies in the infrared spectrum and varies that based on how wet it is, how dry it is, how hot it is, how cold it is, all these things, and they affect the phytonutrients, affect our microbiome. I mean, creation is pulsing with sentience and awareness. And so we need to honor that in our decisions, respecting and honoring that beingness of beings is critical. And that includes the people that we're working with. So, you know, anybody that knows our farm knows that we do a lot with what we call fiefdoms. Okay, this is open-ended opportunities. One of the things that we do is everybody on our team knows, whether they're salaried or performance-based or whatever, nobody is hourly. Everybody knows that if they can conceive of a complementary enterprise, we're going to probably say yes. I mean, unless it's something, whatever, grossly illegal, or unless it violates any of these other things. But if it's a complementary thing, we want them to do it. We want to instill personal ownership, personal stakeholder ownership in what's going on. So there aren't any wages, and you know, and it takes time to know individual gifts and talents among people, and so we spend a lot of time. What would you like to do? You know, I mean, there are critical questions like, if time or money were not an issue, what would you do tomorrow? And you know what we find is nobody says, I'd like to sit on the beach and sip mint juleps. Nobody ever says that. Why? Because we're hardwired to contribute something. That's where our self-worth comes. That's why when we meet people, we say, well, what do you do? We don't ask, what are you? We say, what do you do? It's what we do that defines who we are, our identity, what we do. And our problem right now with our young people is that we have prohibited, we have criminalized most of the things that our kids used to do, you know, We don't have a newspaper anymore. It's all on the screen. They don't pick apples. They don't do the garden. They don't fill the wood box. They don't milk the cow. They don't gather eggs. And all they do is sit in the basement and play on screens. And then we wonder why they become 15 and don't know who they are. Why? Because they've never done anything to find out who they are. And so this takes time to honor the being. And as far as I'm concerned, a lot of this, kids used to stock grocery shelves. You used to see, I ran into a lady that was out in Washington State when the apples started coming in. She's elderly now. She said when she was a kid, in the summer when school was out, the school buses would work with the local orchards, and they'd have schedules, and they would print them and make them public. And the kids, you said if you were a kid and you wanted to earn some spending money, go to the matinee or, be able to get some money to buy mom a gift on Mother's Day, have some spending money, you'd go down and you'd meet the bus at the appointed time. And if you passed you had to be a certain height to pass under a bar. And if you passed, then you'd get on the bus, you'd go out, you'd pick apples all day. They'd pay you for the apples you picked. You got spending money. I mean, can you imagine such an arrangement today? I mean, lawyers would be all over everything. OSHA would be up your grill, and the whole thing would just collapse because it'd be considered child abuse and everything else. But folks, that raised the World War II generation. That raised a generation that took Iwo Jima. That raised a generation that took D-Day, which we celebrated on the 80th anniversary yesterday. So how do we create another generation? We structure our homesteads for our animals and our plants, our kids and our people, so that they honor the glory, the distinctiveness of whatever that being is. I would even say honors the fungusness of the fungus, okay? All right, number 4, equity. Equity is immaterial. Equity is immaterial. What I mean by this is that our equity is not in stuff. It's not in depreciable stuff. It's in our management. It's in our information. It's in our service to buyers, to patrons, to whatever. Our equity then doesn't have to be borrowed. Our equity is in knowledge, skill, and patrons, and no bank can foreclose on it. So our equity ultimately is in relationships. And I can tell you one of the biggest decisions that we make as homesteaders, especially newbies, is, do I buy this machine or not? What kind of tractor? What kind of side-by-side? What, do I get a front-end loader or not? These are big decisions that we make. And I would suggest that many times our weak link is not the material thing we're looking at buying. It's actually our weak link is building relationships with people in the community that we can get knowledge from, skill from, and borrow equipment and trade and share, so we don't have to buy the depreciable equipment and infrastructure to begin with. Does that make sense? So I can tell you forever on our farm, people say, what's the most valuable thing on your farm? They're thinking whatever, equipment, machinery, buildings, things like that. The most valuable thing on our farm is our customer box. Okay? That's the most valuable thing on our farm. And you know what? If we lost the land tomorrow, they would go with us wherever we went. And so suddenly your equity is not even in your land. It's not in your house. It's not in your equipment. It's not in stuff. It's immaterial. It's non-physical. That's a big deal. So ask yourself as you're making decisions on your place, how can my decision move our equity toward relationships, toward management, toward skill? I just got an email yesterday from a guy. He's got 20 acres, new homesteader. He read my stuff. He's got 2 cows. He's moving them around. He said, but I got all this extra grass. Of course he does. He lives in Tennessee. I got two acres. I got 20 acres, 2 cows. Well, 2 cows are never going to eat. So should I bush hog it? Should I mow it down? Should I go to I said, I I've got neighbors that have cows that would be glad to graze it, but I'm hauling water. That was a big red flag. I'm hauling water, and I can haul water for 2 cows, but I can't haul water for 30 or 40 if they come for a month. What am I supposed to do? I said, put in a water line. Okay? Don't buy the bush hog. Don't buy the tractor. You don't need either one of them. Your weak link is management. You don't have something there that you can manage, even a neighbor's friendship with extra cows to eat your grass, to eliminate buying the equipment, because you haven't put in the most basic piece of infrastructure to allow your equity to build into relationships and non-physical opportunities. Does everybody follow that? Okay, so this is how you put it together. All right, number 5. Number 5. Does it empower innovation? Does this decision empower innovation? Am I building a climate that empowers innovation? Now, I know that here, this is a homesteading festival and not an old hermit curmudgeon farmer festival. So I get that. But I can tell you, in the farming community, one of the biggest tensions in farm families is old generation, young generation. Young generation wants to try some things, do some experiments. Old generation throws cold water on it all the time. Now, every time somebody comes to us with an idea, so trust me, I'm standing up here. I'm now the old generation on our place, okay? And I've always done it this way. But I have to ask myself, as I respond to young people with new ideas, am I creating a climate that encourages them to come up with new ideas? Or have I created a cloud of judgment, a cloud of prejudice, a cloud of bias against innovation? And so everybody is, I've got an idea, but I don't dare tell. He'll not like me. He'll throw cold water on it. He'll say it's stupid. He'll say I'm stupid. He'll say, there's a million ways to overtly and covertly throw cold water on an innovative atmosphere. Many of us grew up in homes. I didn't, fortunately, but many people grow up in homes and families that don't embrace and encourage innovation within the family. And so, as we make our decisions, we've got to think about innovation, low capitalization, low bureaucracy. How much red tape am I throwing in front of somebody? See, we're hardwired for negative. Nobody ever comes back from town and says, honey, I hit 6 go lights. We say stoplights. Why? Because we remember what makes us go, not what makes us, we remember what makes us stop, not what makes us go. All right? That's why we call it, we're hardwired that way. Stephen Covey in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talking about emotional equity gas tanks. All of us have an emotional equity gas tank. In your family, in your marriage, you've got an emotional equity gas tank. The formula is 10 praises per criticism. 10 praises per criticism. How many of us growing up in families, no news is good news, you don't hear anything, everything's fine, but boy, if you mess up, you're going to hear about it, right? Folks, we got to be putting emotional equity in the gas tanks of the people closest to us. That means people closest to us need to hear praise, because we're going to make a withdrawal. Stephen Covey talks about this. So we're human. We're going to say an unfit word, unless you're perfect. I don't see Jesus here right now. So we're going to make a withdrawal somewhere along the line. We're going to say an unfit word. We're going to jump to a conclusion. We're going to say something that just didn't come out quite right. Is there enough emotional equity in that tank to withstand a word unfitly spoken. This is about multi-generational embrace. It's about actually encouraging diversity, a diversity of thought, diversity of ideas. So we bring them all to the table. The lean program, the Toyota lean program, one of the main principles of lean is the number one wastage in every single business is failure to capture ideas. How many of us have been in workplaces where we have ideas, we're down in the trenches, we're doing stuff, we got ideas, but the boss doesn't want to hear them. Management doesn't want to hear them. Okay? They quash it up right out the door. But folks, all innovation starts on the lunatic fringe. You know, it's the heretics, it's the lunatics, it's the weirdos that have those innovative ideas. So, hold gently to the orthodoxy du jour. Okay? Hold gently to the orthodoxy of the day. Number six. That's actually the amen corner back there. Okay. Number 6 is, can everybody do it? Or everybody can do it. I call this the whosoever will principle, the whosoever will benchmark. Okay? A good example for me is ponds versus aquifers for hydration, for irrigation. Okay? Another way to look at this is, does it increase the commons? All right? And I know libertarians aren't supposed to talk about the commons, but the commons are real. You know, this water was put here before I came. It'll be here after I'm gone. And I'm just a pilgrim passing through. And so does this decision actually increase the commons for everyone? Does it increase the beyond individual? Is it a whosoever will option? So, for example, if we want to irrigate, if we're irrigating from an aquifer, a well, if everybody did that and everybody sticks a straw in and starts sucking it from a creek or an aquifer, eventually you don't have a creek or an aquifer anymore. That's why the Murray-Darling River in Australia, that in 1860 was sending steamboats from the ocean up 200 miles inland, now doesn't even run to the ocean. They pulled it all off for irrigation. What they needed to be doing was making a bunch of ponds. And if you use surface runoff, like P.A. Yeomans and Water for Every Farm said, then you actually stop flooding and you actually increase the commons. Everybody can do that. Everybody can build a pond. If everybody pulls out of an aquifer, you don't have an aquifer anymore. What if everybody did this? It's additive rather than extractive. Okay, number 7. I got to hustle here. I'm going to run out of time. Number 7, benchmark of truth. Is it easy to enter and easy to exit? Is it easy to enter and easy to exit? Another way to look at this, is it easy to get in and is it easy to get out? How fluid is your exit and entrance ability? See, this is I think probably one of the biggest issues right now in why the average American farmer is now 60 years old. The reason the average American farmer is now 60 years old, which, by the way, is 25 years older than every business book says is healthy for an active economic sector. 35 average age is the average age of a healthy economic sector. Anytime you go over 35, the average practitioner, you're in an economic sector in decline. So we're 25 years beyond or above the 35. Well, why have we gotten to this point? Well, we've gotten to this point because when young people can't get in, old people can't get out. Okay? So one of the ways we know we're making a decision based on truth is, how does that decision gentle down the entry and the exit? A Tyson chicken house does not make an easy entry and an easy exit. A $1 million combine does not make an easy entrance or an easy exit. What large-scale, single-use, capital-intensive infrastructure does is it enslaves and shackles the next generation to doing exactly what the previous generation did, even if it's not economical, even if it's obsolete, even if the world doesn't need it or want it anymore. And so what we want is nimbleness. See, this is what really came to pass in 2020 with the empty store shelves. Does anybody here think that we would have had as many shocks to the food system in 2020 had we, instead of being, as a country, fed from 300 mega processing facilities in a funnel, if we had instead been fed by 300,000 small-scale neighborhood localized abattoirs, canneries, and food processors? It's a rhetorical question. There's no debate about it. Absolutely, the shocks would have been far, far less. And this is what I'm talking about. You can make shifts. You can make changes much easily when you're smaller. How locked in are you? So that's why we want to be mobile. We want to be modular. We want to be management intensive, so we substitute people for highly capitalized, energy intensive, pharmaceutically dependent outfits. In times of of cultural disruptions, and you're navigating rocky shoals, you don't want to be in an aircraft carrier. You want to be in a speedboat. And if you're studying military and defense systems around the world right now about vulnerabilities, you begin to realize why the little speedboats from the Houthis out of Yemen are shutting the world's shipping lanes down, and the big nations with aircraft carriers can't do anything about it. Drones, shoulder-powered Stinger missiles that cost, $1,000 to bring down a $35 million F-35 fighter jet. We're in the miniaturization age. And in our farms and our homesteads, folks, we are on the cutting edge. It's not about big farms anymore. It's about nimbleness. It's about adaptability. When things get different, things get tough, it's a lot easier to adapt if you're one or two salaries on a small place compared to if you're a monstrous, overcapitalized, single species, commodity-based, low-margin enterprise. Everybody with me? How easy it is to get in and get out. All right, number eight, benchmark of truth. It's consistent across all fields: spiritual, ethical, economic, and ecological. Okay, it's consistent across all fields. So many times we see decisions and we make decisions where we feel like, well, we've got to compromise the ecology on this in order to be economical. That's a real common one. Or we've got to compromise the economic in order to be ecological. Or we've got to compromise what we really believe spiritually in order to make a living. Or we've got to compromise, if we actually do what we believe God wants us to do, then we're not going to be able to do what's economical. These tensions. And so when we make a decision, we shouldn't have to struggle with hypocrisy. If we're struggling with hypocrisy, it's probably the wrong decision. So, for example, multi-speciation. Multi-speciation is the ecological pattern. Ecology loves multi-speciation and diversity. Multi-speciation creates economic synergy because we've got a bunch of economic enterprises instead of one. We've got a bunch of different kinds of eggs in the basket instead of just one. And it recognizes the different spiritual or phenotypical gifts and talents of the beings that we're working with. That's how multi-speciation is consistent across all fields. A good neighbor doesn't pollute the air and water or send GMO beings to have an adulterous orgy on their neighborhoods while they sit in church and talk about the golden rule. Ultimately, consistency across all fields is about running on faith and not fear. Number 9, benchmark of truth. It's appropriate, or we could say viable, appropriate in both developed and undeveloped countries. Don't lose me here. I'm being very careful here with the way I talk about this, because, and I'm not trying to talk down undeveloped. There's no condescension here. I'm just trying to be, rich, poor countries. I mean, we've got all sorts of things, and people run with that, with xenophobia and racism and all that stuff. I have no interest in that at all. I'm just trying to explain that most of the things that the rich Western world is financing, aiding, and investing in poorer development countries is inappropriate for them. They don't need a Tyson chicken house. They need pastured poultry. They don't need beef feedlots. They need managed electric fencing. They don't need great big combines. They need BCS. Little walk-behind tractors. They and a lot of them, don't even need a tractor. They just need a pair of oxen. They don't need chemicals for fertility. They need biomass. They can grow biomass right there on site. Local carbon-centric, on site, offering self-reliance. I remember very well when Chernobyl blew. Some of you are old enough to remember that. Chernobyl blew, and that radioactive cloud came down across Belarusia, which was the dairy region of the Soviet Union at that time. And the radioactivity landed in the mammary glands of the cows. And so the milk was radioactive. The meat wasn't, strangely enough. The meat was okay, but the milk was radioactive. They couldn't drink the milk. People were starving. And so immediately the U.S., sent $1 billion of foreign aid over there to help them. And about 6 months after all that happened, through a series of different things, their Secretary of Agriculture, their equivalent of our Speaker of the House, and their Senate Pro Tem, so the 3 people that were closest to the president of the country didn't come, but the next 3 down did. And they wanted to come and visit our farm, and they came in their nice entourage with their interpreters. Wonderful, wonderful guys. Took them around the farm. We finished up with tea on the porch, and here's what they said. They said that U.S. aid arrived in their country. The day it arrived, every hotel in the capital city filled up to capacity with John Deere, Pioneer seeds, Monsanto, and they spent that money to U.S. corporations in a month on crops that they didn't know how to grow, machinery they didn't have parts for, and they were no better off in 6 months. They said, if we had implemented what we've seen here today with simple controlled fencing, electric fencing, gravity water systems, simple systems, they said not only could we have fed our people, we would have had plenty left over for export. So, and that's just one of many. I could walk up another hour with mayors from Herzegovina and all that. I mean, a king from Kenya visited with his entourage. I mean, and every single one of them, they leave and they say, everything that we've been given from the UN and from the U.S. is destroying our people. This is what we need. Simple, small scale, ecologically based, self-reliant. That's what works. And so when we make a decision, is it viable in both a developed and undeveloped country. And for me, this has been a big one as I visited with these people from around the world and realized, wow, not only does this work in the U.S., it works in Hungary, it works in Bulgaria, it works everywhere. And that's very affirming that it's across all social, political, economic type of countries. And finally, number 10, the last benchmark of truth is that it scales both up and down. It scales both up and down. See, when you have a model that is size discriminatory, when it's size discriminatory, it means that you have to have a certain volume in order to make it work. So when people look at our, chicken shelters out there, and I'm just picking on that for example, out in the field, they say, oh, this is nice, warm, fuzzy, but can it feed the world? We scale not by centralization, we scale by duplication. And yes, the fact is, we don't need a single Tyson chicken house on the planet. We don't need a Smithfield hog factory on the planet. We don't need a single beef feedlot on the planet. What we need is thousands and thousands and thousands of people entering the arena. People like you, people like me, that are entering the arena, many of us for the first time. And we're gradually showing that the composite, the cumulative effect of what we're doing does in fact feed the world and feed our community. So if it, one of the neat ones that we've done is our pigerator compost. You're supposed to, if you're a self-respecting farm, you're supposed to make compost with great big $25,000, $30,000 compost turners, big windrows, and you make these compost windrows. That's scale, okay? We use pigs, and pigs turn it, aerate it, make the compost, and this makes the same profitability, whether it's just as the margin is the same, whether you're doing it with 3 cows and 2 pigs or 1,000 cows and 500 pigs. It's complete. Why? Because we're not using petroleum, we're not using machinery, we're using appreciating infrastructure called pigs that we buy for $120 and sell for $1,200. That's why I like to buy machinery. See, the reason most farms have had to get big in order to stay in business is because when you're in materials handling with depreciable machinery, you're on this trying to beat the depreciation rat race with volume to recapitalize the things that rot, rust, and depreciate. But if you allow appreciating animals to do your work, if you do your work with synergies, with relationships, other things, in marketing, can anyone access the loading dock? I had the vice president. I had nine vice presidents from Sam's Club, Costco, anyway, one of those outfits come by. They were on a sabbatical 2-day trip to get in touch with sustainability. They called it a blue zone trip, and they stopped by the farm, and we're sitting there. We give a tour and we have a lunch, and they were very interested in what we were doing, and one of them said, so how do we get your food at, Sam's Club, Costco, Walmart? I said, well, the first thing you have to do is let a truck smaller than a tractor trailer back up to your dock. End of discussion. End of discussion. We didn't discuss it anymore. Nothing. That was it. They could not even conceive of a marketing scheme, a distribution protocol that would allow anything smaller than a tractor trailer to back up to their dock. that means it doesn't scale up and down. That's my point, okay? So what we want, we want profitability to not be dependent on size. That's how you know you're in a benchmark of truth. That you don't have to get big for profitability. You can start profitable from small, and then you scale by duplicating that protocol, and gradually you make a full-time income with it, without having to scale necessarily. Those are my 10 benchmarks of truth. I hope that's interesting, and I hope it helps you to make really good decisions going forward. I've got a few minutes. I'll take some questions. If anybody has a question, we'll take, yes.
Okay, so I listened to you and Michael Pollan earlier, and I personally thank you because your book is probably one of the first ones that really changed my life a couple of years ago. I've been doing a lot of thinking about the viral theory or the germ theory, like thinking about benchmarks of truth, and that is something that has been sold to us as truth. Do you have a thought about that?
Okay, the question is benchmark of truth, viral theory versus germ theory versus... I think what you're looking for is terrain versus germ theory. So for those of you who aren't familiar with this, germ theory was developed by a Frenchman named Louis Pasteur, and he was a very handsome, flamboyant, articulate, well-spoken guy who did great social media interviews. He was on Facebook all the time. He was a very charismatic guy. There was a contemporary of his. For those of you in public school, that means they lived at the same time. Named Michel Beauchamp, okay? And Beauchamp said, and so Pasteur said, the reason you're getting sick is these little germs in here. And Beauchamp said, yeah, I see the little things, but why do some people succumb and others don't? And he postulated the terrain theory, which was a completely different way. So we're talking about 1840? Beauchamp is talking about things that reduce the immune system. I mean, he's talking about stress, sleep, lack of hygiene, open sewers in Paris, okay? And he's fingering all of these things that we know now today do indeed break down the immune system. And so he advanced the terrain theory. Yes, there are these little germy, buggy things, but it's really about the terrain that decides. And so these guys fought all their lives, but he was not as flamboyant and handsome, and he didn't do as much social media work as Pasteur did. And so he lost out. We know who won. And Pasteur still wins today. And so functional medicine, naturopathy, all the quacks in the medical community, they've embraced the terrain theory. And the mainstream medical community has embraced the germ theory, okay? And so, I mean, just think about it, folks. Wouldn't it have been cool? I was waiting all through COVID. I was waiting for our dearest friend, Anthony Fauci. Remember him? We all just learned to love him through the thing. All right. I was wanting him to step up to the microphone one day and say, all right, Americans, we're going to try an experiment for a month. Here's what we're going to do. First thing we're going to do is we're going to eat no ultra-processed foods. We're going to eat whole foods. We're not going to shop the center of a supermarket. We're not going to get, instant soups. We're not going to get any of this. We're going to get whole foods, one ingredient stuff. And we're going to get in our kitchens. We're going to cook it, okay? Or better yet, don't go to the supermarket at all and go to farmer's market. Go to your local farmer. Okay, all right, we're all on the same page. All right, next. We're all deprived of sleep. We're all, so everybody's going to sleep for 8 hours a night. We're not going to stay up, watch the late news. We're going to go to sleep. Sleep. we are not sweating enough. So we're going to get out and walk vigorously 20 minutes a day and sweat a little bit. That's the way you get toxins out, and you get your, let's move. Michelle Obama used to say, get moving. All right, and she was right. Let's move. All right. So yeah, we're going to do that. And then, sun's really good. So we're going to spend 20 minutes a day out. We're not going to lock in our houses. We're going to spend 20 minutes a day, get out here absorbing sunshine. Okay. And let's see, what else are we going to do? The news is really a downer. And fear is one of the number one ways to destroy an immune system. So you know what? If you watch 1 hour of regular news, you have to counter that with 2 hours of side-splitting comedy. Okay? So for every hour of news you watch, you got to watch 2 hours of side-splitting comedy. Listen to comedians, whatever, all right? And laugh for 2 hours, all right? And let's see, what else are we going to do? Vengeance and hatred and get evenness and stuff, boy, that's tough. So what we're going to do is I want everybody to take out a piece of paper and write down all the people who've done you wrong, who you just would like to, hit them with a baseball bat to make it even, and forgive them. Forgive them. And just free yourself from the shackles of vengeance. Let's try that for 1 month and see what happens. What do you think would have happened? I think we would have gotten along better, okay? But that's terrain theory. And that's not his paradigm. So it's all about pharmaceuticals and killing the bugs and all that. So that's the battle going on. And it's interesting how more and more terrain is beating out germ, but there's a lot of inertia in germ, and that's where we are. All right, maybe another question. Anybody else got a question? Yes.
I know you mentioned that the best part about the church is that you all over the world, different terrains and different kinds of development. And I just want to mention I saw, I believe it was in Kenya, where no matter 4 years, using very similar techniques to what you're doing, is open actually
Yeah, so he's pointing out that he saw in Kenya, we're talking about, does it apply throughout the world? And in Kenya, where they had these big dirt, just bare dirt areas, they planted some trees and then started some controlled grazing. And in 4 years, went from basically bare dirt, nothing, to verdant places. I can tell you, having been in Africa, there is no reason for Africa to be starving. There is plenty of food. There is plenty of resource, plenty of rain. Only reason anybody starves is, socio-political conflict, warlords, ethnic cleansing, and all sorts of things. Somebody blocks the truck across the mountain pass to get somewhere. But nobody is starving because there's not enough food. We've got plenty. We've got plenty of food. In fact, for the first time in human history, the world is now throwing away 40% of its human edible food. We have never thrown away that much food before. Why? Well, because, in fact, I talked to a guy from Zimbabwe. He worked in a green bean processing facility exporting to the EU in Europe. And he said, we send 2 tons a day out the front door to export, and we send 2 tons a day out the back door to throw away. And I said, wow, why half of the green beans? I mean, we grow green beans in the garden. We certainly don't throw very many away. I said, why are you throwing so many away? He said, well, they're too long or too short or too fat or too skinny or not straight enough or too, they don't fit the box. And so this whole blemish-free, blemish-free idea that the rich Western world has developed over food is just terrible, and so I mean there's an example of it. Africa is incredibly rich with resources, and we just need to let them sort it out, and quit trying to intervene and manipulate and say, we'll send you tractors because they're tempted by the same shiny objects as we are, and we'll send you these tractors if you start allowing LGBTQ in your church pulpits, and that's what we do. I'll get sidetracked here pretty quick, but let me tell you, you don't have to. Let me tell you guys something. You don't have to travel very far in the world today. I was just in Austria and Hungary. I'm going to Switzerland and probably Portugal this fall. I've been in Africa last fall. Listen, I've been in South America twice now in the last 6 months. You don't have to travel very much in the world to find out that America is quickly becoming a pariah on the world stage. They do not like us. We meddle. And we're throwing all this wokeness, DEI stipulations on everything, and it's not good. It's not good. And we have definitely overreached our grasp, overrun our head, however you want to do it, and we are going the same direction Rome did with bread and circuses and debased money and elitist power. Anyway. That's why we're here, because when it goes down, when it all goes down, folks, it's going to be us. It's not going to be Tyson. It's not going to be Impossible Burger. It's not going to be Bill Gates that help their neighbors, that become a pantry for the community. It's going to be those of us who have saved some seeds, planted some gardens, know how to butcher, know how to can, know how to dehydrate, and we have a pantry full of food, and we will be the balm of Gilead. We will be the hope and help when our communities become hopeless and helpless. That's the way it's going to be. And that's one of the fun things about this festival here, and most of these Homestead festivals. I mean, I'm going to. They're just propping up everywhere, and yeah, we have some guns on our place, but at the end of the day, this isn't about when things go down, circle the wagons and shoot everybody that's needful. It's about building community, neighbors, and relationships. Living proximate to people who know how to grow things, fix things, and build things. That's the new 401k plan, folks. New 401k plan is, are you living in relationship proximate to people who know how to grow things, fix things, and build things? And I'm talking almost every day now with people who are actually cashing in 401ks, buying a rural property, taking a course in small engine repair, getting going to courses and things, learning how to butcher, how to run a chainsaw, how to do these things, because those are I'll close with this. I had a fascinating. I'm not sure I've told this in public much. We had a fascinating guy. We have so many interesting people come by the farm. We had a family recently that came by, and the guy was a recent retiree, 30-year career guy with the U.S. Defense. I'm messing up the vegetable soup. Defense agency. It's the umbrella agency that's over all the spooks. It's the master spooks, okay? And he had just retired. Fascinating guy, and he said that in all of their, and this is ultimately hopeful here. First of all, he said something's going to happen. I don't know if it's economic. I mean, there are numerous scenarios, and so they've done all these what if things. But he said as they study empire collapse or cultural collapse throughout history, there's one real significant commonality, and this will give you hope. The significant commonality is if you can hang on for 3 months, it's like a magic number. He said they've studied all the 25 historic civilization collapses, and the people that could hang on for 3 months were the ones that sat in the saddle on the newly emerged, what came out of the crisis. Because in 3 months, the civilization adapts. It adapts with new coinage, trade options, transportation options, building options, all sorts of things. And so, I don't know about you, but if you've ever been a part of the prepper community or any of that, it's always like, a year, 2 years, 3 years. They got this stuff freeze-dried. It lasts for 25 years, all this stuff. And I've always found that intimidating. How about you? I found that intimidating. That's a long time. Dave Ramsey says have an emergency money fund for 6 months, okay? And this guy said that in 3 months when things go down, listen, if things go down in 3 months, nobody's going to care if the beef that you just butchered and you want to sell to a neighbor with wampum or seashells as exchange is going to care if it's got a federal inspection on it. Are you with me? Okay. And I just talked with a guy who has been 20 years going to North Korea. He's part of a mission group that goes in. They've got electricians, plumbers. He was a vet, doctors, and they go into North Korea as an evangelistic, underground evangelistic thing. They go to North Korea. He's been going for 20 years. And I asked him, I said, what's the single biggest difference between North Korea and us? Everybody agrees North Korea is really different than us. Wouldn't you agree? All right. So I was really looking for, if you nailed one thing, what's the difference? And without hesitation, he said, family. Family. The kissing cousin of that is neighbors, community. He said they don't have medical safety nets. They don't have they don't have workman's comp. They don't have Medicare, Medicaid. They don't have any of this stuff. And so if you're needy, whether you're sick or you got injured or you're old or impaired, you got nobody to rely on except people who live with you or near you. That's it. And here in the U.S., a lot of people live for 20 years next door to people and don't even know their name. There are people in the cities that live in condominiums and apartment complexes and don't even know who lives across the hall. Don't know who lives upstairs, that they hear them, banging at night or whatever. And we just, in our culture, we have not cultivated this. And so it kind of put a little burr in my saddle to put more attention on how do we create this stability and this resilience in our homesteads, our neighborhoods, our friends. We need to be developing friendships that are beyond playing Uno and Monopoly. We need to be developing relationships with people we can trade seeds with, trade canning jars with, trade lawnmowers with, trade extension cords with. Are you with me? And if you can write it out for 3 months, to me, I don't know about you, 3 months sounds doable. 3 months? Yeah, we can, I could probably go a month without actually eating anything, okay? And so, 3 months sounds really, really doable. And so, I encourage you with that, that just think about that. 3 months, innovation and adaptation happens so fast when there's hunger, when there's need, that you don't have to be intimidated by years. Just be ready for that. And I find that really hopeful. Okay, well, thanks for letting me share with you. I hope this has been helpful and interesting. and you'll make good decisions in the future. Thank you.